Hello, everyone. Tonight on Fired Up Conservative Talk, I'm your host, William Del Pilar, the conservative Latino the media wishes would just shut up and go away. Instead, I'm right here in your ear saying the things they're terrified you'll start repeating. At least that's what I tell myself. This is not your polite, pre approved Republican panel show. Tonight, we're going to open with Texas, where voters just blew up the establishment script. Cornyn and Paxton in a runoff. Crenshaw out. America First is surging, and Trump's endorsement will decide who really runs this movement in 2026. So let's bring the G-man in. The primaries were held just this past week, and everything's bigger in Texas, including these primaries. And it was exciting. We have the establishment versus America First and Paxton versus Cornyn. So your initial thoughts on these primaries?
Yeah, I mean, you just don't see it coming sometimes where an incumbent is forced into a runoff against his own party, right? And that was actually the surprising news of the night. Jasmine Crockett losing. So those are the two big stories of the night. And I think on the GOP side, the primary battle between Cornyn and Paxton, that's going to be quite a sight in the next 2 months.
That's a barn
Because
burner.
the question is, who's Trump going to come down? Whose side is he going to come down on? And
And
that
that's
might
one of
make
the
the difference.
topics. Yes, that is one of the topics tonight. And so let's get to it. So Texas voters blew up the establishment script March 3rd, 2026, forcing Senator John Cornyn and Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, into a May 26th GOP Senate runoff. The winner will face James Talrico, who took Jasmine Crockett out. Once the runoff became reality, Trump demanded the race must stop now. Quote, must stop now, unquote. And he teased a quick endorsement with the loser expected to drop out. This is one of the times Trump needs to shut the bleep up and take a step back. And we'll get into that as well, too. But at the same time, in good news, Steve Toth toppled banned Patches Crenshaw. And Trump endorsed candidates dominated across the states. Crenshaw was not endorsed. And ex-MAGA influencers saw their clout wane, like the Hog twins, Hog, Hoj, whatever, the morons now, and others. And Democrats unified, as I mentioned earlier, behind James Talarico. You know, that white pastel guy has got a great Spanish sounding last name, G. Talarico. You know, tenemos aquí Jorge Talarico. You see this white pasty guy walk in. Regardless, right now it's setting up a brutal internal Republican Party fight before November with Paxton and Cornyn. So let's get straight into Paxton and Cornyn. Uh, Follow the money. Cornyn claims, Republicans shouldn't be fighting in Texas because that money is needed elsewhere. But for the audience and for G, if he doesn't know, Cornyn spent $70 million for this runoff. He is the incumbent, has been serving longer than your kids have been alive, and G's got teenagers, and he had to spend 70 million, while Paxton spent 4.4 million and still forced the runoff. Cornyn is saying they need this money to use on other closer races around the country. Well, what I'm seeing here, G, is maybe you shouldn't have run Cornyn. And let me add this in there. Paxton chose to run. He went to a speaking engagement and made some mention of Cornyn about this guy. He couldn't name an accomplishment. Nobody else could. Then he went to a speaking event. Cornyn spoke before him, was roundly booed. He was cheered, Paxton. And that's when he says he realized this guy's done. He's been serving for a couple decades. Nobody wants him. And that's one big reason he chose to run. So he's using the money, like saying we shouldn't be fighting. I'm the incumbent. My name will carry us. But yeah, he had to spend 70 million. Isn't he the problem? Not Paxton, or maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of torn on this as I look at the situation. Yes, we should not be spending that kind of money on a safe Senate seat, which is a Texas seat. So with Cornyn, I agree with that. At the same time, you can't have these guys serving for years and years and decades because then, like you said, they just become part of the establishment. They forget that they serve the people and not their elite ruling class. And that basically, if you think about Trump, Trump was basically elected to break up the top ruling class and fight for the people. So you could make a case that that's what Paxton is doing, especially with so little money. I mean, that's like a Trump versus Kamala, right? If you remember,
Right.
Trump got what, 200 million, and Kamala burned through 2 billion, 10x. So in this case, it was almost 20x. And so where do we go from here? I mean, I don't know if this is going to hurt the party in Texas, but it's good for Cornyn to look at himself and go, wait a minute, maybe I need to return to my conservative roots, if at the very least. Instead of making an argument, hey, look, we're wasting money, he should make the argument, look, I'm here to fight for the people and to hold dearly to those conservative principles, right? So that's my takeaway from this race. I don't really care which guy wins. And I do agree with him. We shouldn't be spending this money. But for him to criticize the money spending instead of his own principles, that's the problem.
Well, look, Cornyn's leading 42 to 41% last count. My media, which is always dominated by the few influencers, had Paxton. He may hit 50% tonight. And I'm thinking, y'all are idiots. 70 million spent. He's an incumbent. Paxton is polling well, but I don't see anybody getting over 50%. And sure enough, look at this chart, G. So right now it's 42% to 41%. So you got to go all the way to the right here for
Yeah.
Paxton, 4.4 million. Hunt, the other candidate in here, outspend him almost by double. 42 to 41 with Wesley Hunt around 13%. No one over 50, so it's May 26th for an opportunity in the top two. This race was deemed the most expensive Senate race in history, nearly
Wow.
130 million. Now, this isn't even the race. This is the primary. Paxton says he will stay in the race. Trump is going to come out with an endorsement, but Paxton says that he will stay in the race. Now, G, Nine has never been a reliable Trump ally, so I think you should care. From that perspective, he's at times a Mitch McConnell type. He's never been a reliable Trump ally, is widely seen as establishment rhino, while Paxton has been a popular conservative in Texas for decades. And he only became radioactive with dirt coming out when he ran for Senate. Now, to defend the system, you gotta go to the big leagues. You better expect the dirt to come out, and that what I'm not defending. I'm saying that's just the reality of it. You know, uh, and the establishment has played the role of Democrats, circle the wagons. So is he threatening? Is he really threatening a safe seat? And is this really about electability or protecting the good old boys club from an America First candidate?
For Cornyn, yeah, I think it's pretty much protecting his job, right? And the good old boys club. So I believe that's the side of it. Now, if I were Cornyn, I would be smart. I would say, look, the difference between me and Paxton when he's trying to get the endorsement from President Trump, all he needs to say is, look, I have something Paxton doesn't. I have power. I have voting power. So what do you need, Trump, to get your stuff across, get your legislation onto your desk? What do you need? Give me the endorsement and I'll give you what I mean, politics is all about making deals, right? So he's got to make some deals. Paxton has very little to offer. And let's look at it this way. Even if Trump endorses Cornyn, but Paxton wins the primary and then wins the general, you think Paxton's just going to be this anti-Trump guy? He's probably not. So you probably want to keep your quote quote enemies closer and keep Cornyn closer to your side because he'll probably win the primary and the general, and Trump's going to need him in the future. So you keep your enemies, quote unquote enemies, closer. And Paxton, if he wins, he'll just be grateful to be sitting in that seat, and he'll be siding with Trump either way. So I think Trump should endorse Cornyn, and I'm sure a lot of conservatives will hate me there out there going, well, that's the wrong take, but you got to be pragmatic. You got to get legislation across the desk, and so
Right.
Trump can sign it, and that's the end goal here.
So unless the SAVE Act is going to be voted on between now and that runoff, I don't endorse. If I'm Trump, I go, I need your vote. Thune, get the bleeping vote up to that now. I expect you to vote yes on it, John, or I may just endorse Paxton. Because
Exactly.
because at the end of the day, Cornyn will pull a Democrat Party 1986 to Ronald Reagan when they made a promise in terms of immigration. And if he opened up for amnesty, and Reagan did, and they never followed through with their promise. That is who Fortnite's a dog, a slime, evil. The serpent in the Garden of Eden looks at Cornyn and goes, "Damn, you mean." That's how bad Cornyn is. He's the worst of the lot. He's a Mitch McConnell type guy. I loathe him because he's like this guy that comes election times carrying the gun over his shoulder, like conservative, and then as soon as the election's over, slithers away. So Trump, this is where I'm sorry, this is where Trump gets stupid at times, and too trusting. I will play it. Now to show how savvy Ken Paxton is, he came out, he said he was gonna stay in the race, and that pissed Trump off. Well, maybe he shouldn't do that. He's going down the wrong road. Wrong road of what? Just because Trump endorses somebody doesn't mean they're going to vote for him. Trump endorsed candidates have lost, and this is a clear case. MAGA is against Cornyn. You go online because of the job. I go online a lot. It is 100% MAGA behind Paxton. This is one of those few times where I see MAGA saying, F you, President Trump. I'm going to vote for Paxton. So Paxton is actually pretty smart. And he posted this tweet. The Save America Act is the most important bill the U.S. Senate could ever pass. And I'm committed to helping President Trump get it done. I would consider dropping out of this race if Senate leadership agrees to lift the filibuster and passes the Save America Act. John Cornyn is a coward who has refused to support abolishing the filibuster to pass this bill. Now, fake news reporters and the establishment are trying to destroy me with misinformation. This is all shades of Donald Trump, how he speaks. The truth is clear. No one has been more loyal to Donald Trump than me, fighting the stolen 2020 election, being in Mar-a-Lago when he announced his 2024 campaign, and standing with him in New York in the face of lawfare. For the good of our country and for the good of passing President Trump's agenda, I am determined to help him get this done. When you see that, G, what goes through your, take it for what it says. You can comment on that. But from a strategic standpoint, what do you see with this move?
Well, I mean, he's just trying to keep the party honest, right? Trying to keep Cornyn honest and say, look, I have the conservative credentials. You're part of the good old boys club. But when you read this, like by the time he gets into office, right? If Paxton ends up winning, it will be a new Congress. And at this point, it looks like Democrats might take the House. And there is no the Save Voter ID Act. I mean, that's the Save America Act is done at that point. So Trump has to use the leverage now and say, Cornyn, you want my endorsement? Break the filibuster. Let's get this done. And I think Paxton is helping Trump make that case. And it looks like Paxton, yeah, I mean, I'm sure he wants to win, but he's running to keep the party honest, right? And that's what it looks like. A lot of these challengers, they run up against incumbents to keep them honest.
I got to be honest, G. I think this is purely a strategic move. He knows it's not going to happen. Let's be clear on that. I think he's going to stay in the race regardless. And I think he knows the numbers. He knows the
Yeah.
numbers. And
42,
he knows he
41.
can win. What he needs Trump is to stay the hell out of it. And he should. Trump shouldn't put his mouth. Cornyn's going to betray Trump. This is where Trump gets stupid in my eyes. This is where I'm like, bro, he's blowing hot air up your tush because he knows you're going to lap it up. And that's what happens in these type of situations. And Trump needs to be a bit more savvy. So I hope the people behind Trump are going, Mr. President, we probably need this sit this one out. Plus, if the reality of it is Trump should tell Cornyn your time's come and gone, but he can't because Cornyn will just betray him from here to next year.
But Trump did say he will endorse, right? He's
yeah,
not
he
sitting
did
this
say
one out.
that.
Yeah.
Right, he's not, and that's going to burn him. That's going to burn him because I think the betrayal is going to be that. I look at it as a betrayal. Trump's playing politics when he could have had a move to not endorse anybody because Paxton's against doing away with the filibuster. So what use is he?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about playing politics. Like in the end, people remember you for what you got done, no matter how you got it done, right? And everyone who's an astute politician understands that sometimes you have to play the politics. Scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. We'll both get things done, and many times it's useless stuff, but many times it's very important stuff like the Save America Act that needs to get done. Otherwise, there's no hope for our country.
Right? No, I agree. Final thoughts. Prediction. on the race.
I think Cornyn will pull off the primary. I think in the end, I mean, it depends where all those other votes go to Hunt. I mean, does it go to the challenger? Then Paxton will get it,
I
and
think
he'll go on to win the general. But I predict right now Cornyn will get it.
I think Cornyn will win a squeaker. I think Hunt should endorse Paxton and work something out, but he's probably trying to work out a deal of secession maybe with Cornyn. Here's the problem: Cornyn's radioactive. He may win this limping, but he's a neuter dog. And it come into 20 years limping to the finish line. That's not. It's like Bush, in 2008.
Yep.
Nobody wanted him campaigning. Joe Biden, 2024, nobody wanted him. That is Cornyn. I think if Trump would stay out of it, Paxton would win. I have no doubt about that. We will see. But let's talk about some good news. That's some internal fighting there. Crenshaw Falls. In Texas, 2 State Representative Steve Todd defeated Dan Crenshaw, knocking out a 4-term incumbent who was he was actually the only Texas GOP House member without a Trump endorsement. So Crenshaw had broken with the base on Ukraine funding and the 2020 election certification, while Todd rode a grassroots energy plus backing from Ted Cruz and Turning Point Action. And in District 23, incumbent Tony Gonzalez and challenger Brandon Herrera were headed towards a runoff. Herrera edged Gonzalez in the first round, and May 26th runoff was slated, but Gonzalez has backed out, and it is now Herrera who will represent the Republican Party in November. Made this interesting is that Gonzalez is the representative, who was caught having allegedly an affair with a staffer who set herself on fire. And they said it was suicide, but a lot of people are saying no, that's a broken heart, you know, uh, a woman scorned who went the wrong way, so things were going south for Gonzalez because this came out over the past month. He was a Trump endorsed candidate before the scandal. Trump didn't renege on his endorsement, but he went silent. Whereas Herrera is a MAGA America first, so Trump gains in this race as Gonzalez was more of an establishment Republican. See, this is what burns me up about Trump. You've got an America first candidate, but then somebody blows hot air up your tush and you're like, ooh, let me endorse Gonzalez. Oh. That's what I get so mad at him. It's like you can create party change, but you don't. Because somebody's blowing in your ear. We need him, Senor Presidente. You moron. So Gonzalez, who's seen as betraying the Second Amendment principles, was supported same-sex marriage and was against a lot of the border security Trump wanted to implement. So what message do these two races send the Republicans? Are we finally seeing a real shift where the base is willing to retire the Crenshaw, swap out Trump-endorsed moderates like Gonzalez for a true America First candidate? Or is this just a one-cycle revolt that the establishment and even Trump himself will eventually tame again?
Well, they say politics is local, right? So in one case you had the Trump guy winning, and in the other case you have him losing. I mean, politics is so hard, but here you talk about Gonzalez, right? He's not a real MAGA America First guy, but Trump endorsed him. And that's where you see the pragmatism of Trump. He needs him for his vote, right? So he says, okay, well, I'm going to endorse you. And there must have been some deal made in the back room that this is what I get out of this. Otherwise, Trump would be going for Herrera. So you know, I don't think that you can actually come away with any real conclusion. And look, like people get tired of presidents after their second term, actually during their second term. And you saw it with all the presidents, and Biden was unique because he got it in his first term. But people just generally say, you know what? We got you across the finish line for reelection. We don't want to hear from you anymore. I mean, nobody wants to hear from Obama. And he did campaign a little bit here and there, but by and large, people go, you know what? All you did was pass Obamacare and you didn't do much of anything else. Same thing's going to happen with Trump. And, I'm sorry to say that, but he does have star power. He has that unique thing where he says, okay, well, I'll do this. And a lot of people will go and do it. But you're starting to see that that's fading. Iran, we're going to talk about that later, but Iran has a lot to do with that. People just get president fatigue, leader fatigue. And you see
So,
it in all organizations. I
so,
don't like this guy anymore over me. He's been there for 4 years now, or 5 years, 6 years. We need a new guy, and people just get tired of it.
so here's the pushback I'll give you.
Yeah.
Normally, I would agree. No, but there was nobody to pick up Obama's black vote because they weren't black. I mean, let's just be honest. And I don't believe the 82 million or 85 million votes that Biden got because they kind of disappeared the next cycle. There were issues with the pipes bursting
That's
all
why I didn't
over
say people
America.
got sick of Trump after one term. I didn't say that
Right.
because that
No, no, no. I know.
question
Actually,
mark in
you're talking.
2020.
You're
Yeah.
talking after the second term.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
However, Trump's voters are up for grabs, so Trump will have a big say once he leaves office
That's true.
in helping shape that. So my issue with Trump is there are opportunities for you to sit there and make gains with America First candidates. McConnell hates you. The Senate is your enemy, and the House is your enemy too. They don't play and push your agenda along like Democrats do with Obama or even Biden to an extent. They're all in. Our side, you always fight to the nail. You could have sent a message. I'm endorsing Paxton for the get go. Maybe he gets above 50%. I'm endorsing Tarera, you know? So I think what happens, somebody whispers in his ears, the president, we got to play it safe here. And he screws himself over in the long term. I'd rather see, and there's no guarantee. Everybody says we're going to lose in the midterms. I think it's way too early. Give me this, we're in this scenario 3 months from now. I'm like, yeah, things aren't looking good. But as you and I know, G, the economics is still playing. We got a jobs report. We're not going to talk about it, but it was lower than usual. You really? You're right, technically. But you know what was good about it? All the job losses are still foreign workers. You know, and the job gains are still American. You know, so you got to sit there and look at it from the actual context. So we're still way too early. But I get your point.
Yeah.
The problem I have with your point is it's safe politics. And this is why Republicans have been on the losing end for years. That said, when's the last time we had an actual president like Trump? So it's not that I forget Trump. It's like we're kind of in uncharted waters because even Reagan had been a party political his whole life, or, since his California days as governor,
Yeah.
So this is the first style president we've had. And I think this is where his lack of acumen in the long game with politics. He lacks that acumen to understand and see it and go after it. Final
Well, I will
thoughts on
say, and
this.
I will agree with you. Like, I will say that Reagan, if you remember 1988, he said, "Win one for the Gipper," right?
Yeah,
And he came out, and it wasn't guaranteed he was coming out in favor of Bush, but his support for Bush pushed Bush over the edge in the
right.
primaries. So, will Trump be like that? Will he be the deciding factor between Rubio and JD Vance? Could be. I think I don't think Trump's going to say anything. I don't think he's going to choose between the two. But if he gives one inkling, I think that's the person who's going to win the primary.
Too
It's
early
going
to
to be
tell.
between those two.
Too early to tell. Look, I hate to say it.
It is. It is.
Trump is an ego, and then one of them pisses off, he'll go for the other one. And you're right though. And Reagan's never. I can't remember. I was a kid. If he actually endorsed Bush, I would imagine he did because Bush's whole campaign was a continuation of the
Yep.
Reagan years.
That's
And if
right.
Reagan wasn't going to support him, he would not have allowed him to do that. So let's talk about the Democrats real quick. The party of blacks, Latinos, women, the party of I don't know what a woman is. Well, they just bleep slapped a woman of color. They said, "Get off the reservation. We don't want you, Jasmine Crockett." The Democrats went with State Representative James Talrico for U.S. Senate after he defeated Jasmine Crockett in a high-profile, high-spend primary. Talrico outspent Crockett roughly about 15 to 4 million. Plus, he had another 8 million with the Super PAC. He ran on a I am people powered. God loves all us transgenders campaign. Politics of love. He did all that to lock up the nomination, which was the exact opposite of the fire and brimstone of Jasmine Crockett. You Latinos, y'all are slaves in the system. We didn't forget that. I actually tweeted at her, maybe you should sit there and look a little bit differently at the politics of hate when you sit there and talk about potential constituents. But anyway, this means that Talarico gets a clear runway to define himself for November while Cornyn and Paxton fight over who owns a Republican brand. So the discussion point, establishment versus identity. Democrats talk nonstop about race, gender, but when an actual Senate seat, let's be honest, G, the Senate is the big wig. That's the major leagues. That's an exclusive club. When it came to having a woman who speaks like an intellectual lawyer at times and speaks like a ghetto woman in the next talking show podcast she goes on, who has called white men every racial name in the book. I don't think the people in the Senate like that. And I don't think they wanted her because they consider her a loose cannon. But they're the party of representation, of women, of gender, of color. What does that say about how seriously they actually take representation? I mean, and gee, it's okay to go, well, in this case, she was just a terrible candidate. That's okay too. But what's your take?
No, okay, so eventually the brain has to supersede someone's skin color, someone's gender, right? You hope so.
Right.
And she's made so many stupid statements on TV. I think she's been on CNN and said some things that would make AOC blush. And AOC go, man, she's really dumb over there, right? So I think there's enough of that where people go, yeah, well, she checks off some of these identity politics boxes, but you know what? She's not that smart, and she can't represent our state in the U.S. Senate. Like you said, they are the big leagues. It's not just some, 200,000 people county area or congressional district area that says, hey, this is what represents us best. This is, what's the population of Texas? 30 million? She'd be representing half of 30 million people. So,
Who she
she
called
represents
slaves.
all 30
She
million.
she called the Latinos that were like slaves,
Yeah.
So and she also said that all we're good for is to pick cotton and clean toilets. Who's
Yeah.
gonna pick our I'm sorry, apologies. Who's gonna pick our strawberries? Who's gonna pick our strawberries? Huh? Who? You gonna pick our strawberries, G? You gonna pick it? No, we need those Latinos here. She really said that. She
I
doesn't
would
realize people don't forget stuff like that.
No, and I remember having beer with my friend. He was Latin. His last name is Diaz, and he's making a case in favor of illegal immigration, saying, "Well, we won't have cheap vegetables if you don't let them come over here because you can't. American workers, you would have to pay them less than minimum wage." And I'm like, "Wait, you're making the case against a minimum wage right now? Seriously?" And
Exactly. See,
he's
they'll
like,
say
"What?
anything.
No,
They'll
no,
say
no,
anything.
no. We need to have minimum wage." I'm like, "Okay, so your thoughts are all jumbled up, right?" So this guy that I was arguing with was a physician, a doctor, a very intelligent guy, right? So now you got a person like Crockett, and she doesn't come across. I mean,
He's a lawyer.
okay, well, you don't have to be smart to be a lawyer. You just need to argue very well.
Which she does.
I kid. So yeah, you have to have some intelligence, but she doesn't portray herself on TV as intelligent, right? And that's the issue. So I
Oh,
think,
but now, hold on, G. She
yeah,
does. It depends. See, that was my whole rant there. When she's talking to a white audience or at one of these political events with all the intellectuals, you speaks like the educated woman she is. But when she goes on a black podcast, she goes all ghetto. Now, people, I'm not insinuating anything at all. But I have a problem with somebody who panders. So she talks a certain way to the white audience and she talks a certain way to the black audience because she's pandering to you. She thinks all y'all gonna talk a certain way. It's why I mock it a lot. I mock my own language being Latino. Well, yeah, say, how you doing, man? My Mike Tyson talk there. Anyway, so G, real quick before we close this segment
yeah,
out, talk
yeah.
to me about Steve Colbert, because I see Randy's here. Randy, if you're there, I'll bring you on here right after we wrap this up. If Talarico went on Stephen Colbert shows, I think that was planned by the Democrat masters, the gatekeepers, whatever you want to call them. We got to get Talarico some exposure here. Jasmine Crockett has the name recognition. And whatever you may think of Jasmine Crockett, she has branded herself. She has made a name for herself. She is well known. People in Texas didn't know her. And they froze her out. That gave him almost 3 million. He had like 2.5 million he was able to raise because of that as they froze Crockett out. But more importantly, that gave her the name recognition to counter Jasmine Crockett. After that episode, people who were involved in voting, hey, you heard Talrico? Oh, no. Well, you heard about the Cobra and said, oh, yeah, oh, that's the guy? I think that late night hoax effectively helped get him over the finish line. People powered or elite powered is what I'm asking you here. What happened there? Do you think I'm right or am I barking up the wrong tree?
I think it's elite powered. I mean, why would Colbert not give equal opportunity to two Democrats, especially one that checks all the identity boxes that he might be interested in? So I think that there was some machination going on behind the scenes that, hey, look, this guy will represent, and I agree with them. Talrico, if he wins, he would represent the Democrats better than Crockett, just purely on his on his articulation, right? What he talks about, and he comes across intelligent, where she doesn't. And I'm sorry, I'm watching stuff. I don't listen to these podcasts that you're referring to. I'm just looking at like CNN, and I'm just like face palming because she makes. Okay, this is my opinion. She makes AOC look like a brain surgeon. I mean, so
You
take
don't think
that.
you don't think Jasmine be telling us Latinos that all we give for a pink and strawberry in the field? Of course, I am mocking how she talks, but yet when
Well,
she talks like us in another setting. But no, you're right, G. That's the brand she wanted to give.
yeah. Why would you insult Latinos in Texas?
Because Jasmine Crockett sees one color as superior. I'm
Right.
sorry, people. In my opinion, I don't want to put this on the host. Somebody said, but I believe she's just a flat out racist. Or if she's not a racist, she's playing racial games, which does nothing to unite, but everything to divide for personal power and probably financial enrichment. Because you get on that talk circuit. You know, in the Democrat circles, race is actually a multi-billion-dollar industry, people, the race industry. And I believe she saw that. She saw that that was her way to political power, and she doesn't have to worry about a lot of Jews in her district like Jamal Bowman did, or that lady in Missouri, and ADL went after him. But what happened is she got redistricted, so that's what she chose to run for the Senate. And now she's completely out of politics, like Crenshaw. And without that office, all the invitations go away. So hopefully we will be done with the Jasmine Crockett's. All right. Texas just became, the frontline test of whether Trump's movement belongs to the base or the Senate GOP. Trump's endorsement in the May 26th runoff will determine whether Texas sends an old guard incumbent or a grassroots back brawler into a general election against Talrico, the pasty white guy with the great Latino last name. The implications are for Senate control, possibly, and Trump's leverage in his second term. Primary voters already fired Crenshaw. Woohoo! Sidelined ex-MAGA critics. We didn't really talk about that, but the ex-MAGA influencers like the Hogue twins, they had no influence in this primary. And we saw Trump-aligned candidates rewarded as nearly every single one outside of Gonzalez won in the state of Texas. And this is a signal that they in Texas and we in America want America first. We don't want a consultant class republicanism. And this showing of so-called MAGA influencers failing was great. And what they need to realize and take out of this is that Trump is not losing his base. Hey, everybody, this is William Del Pilar, founder of Grumblings Media, and I want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our all-volunteer efforts at Grumblings Media, smash the subscribe button right here. 100% free, and please consume and share our great content. Click either one of these two boxes for more of our work.